thank you for joining us here at IMpower. Great to see you again, as always.
Lovely to see you as well, Emma.
Now, we all know how passionate you are about the theme of sustainable investment and the environment and our responsibility to that and the industry's responsibility. Where do you think the industry is at the moment on that, and what do you want to see happening next?
So the industry's moved forward in leaps and bounds, without a doubt. So, for example, ESG data, there's far more coverage, the consistency is improving, but there's still work to be done. And I think that's what we've got to realise and appreciate. So there's more coverage on asset classes, for example, but things like private assets and real assets, there's still a big challenge. And I think the other big challenge the industry is seeing is the cost of all of this. There's a huge cost to the asset managers and the asset owners, for example. And one of the other challenges that they're seeing is the inconsistency between data providers. So we actually analysed 3 data providers at Caceis, and over a third of their data didn't match between the 3 of them. And you can have one data provider, for example, they can be scoring BP as good, another as average, and another as bad. So what do? So you end up getting multiple data providers, and that costs you even more money. And I think that's a huge challenge.
So you'd like to see there to be better measures and better reporting and better data available so that the ideas and the prospect for sustainable investment is actually a realistic one for companies?
Oh, most definitely. And I think the other area we need to think about is there's a lot of people out there setting net zero targets, for example. But how are they going to get there? And there seems to be very little examples of how people are actually measuring that. And so we need that more consistent scientific reporting to demonstrate how they're going to get there, the roadmap, and measuring that. There are some really good examples in the industry, don't get me wrong. So for example, in the asset owner space, we've got Railpen, very large pension scheme in the UK. And they've got a cracking roadmap as to how they're going to get to net zero. And at the moment, they state that 65% of their portfolio, and you've got to think this is around, I think they're about 40 billion, is actually aligned to net zero, or they're engaging. And they have a clear pathway to get to 2050 and be net zero. So they've built their own in-house model on how they do that. And this is done at company level. So there's some great examples. And when you put that into context, people will say, well, that's still only 65% of assets for that one pension scheme. But if you think of UK pension fund assets in the UK at 2.4 trillion, the power of just 65% of those assets being aligned to net zero if everyone was to follow the similar path. So there's loads of good things happening. And I think Railpen are one of those leaders in that space.
So you described one pension fund there who are really walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And
absolutely.
What else are you seeing in terms of challenges in this specific space, and what would you like to see happen next?
So I think the next big challenge is biodiversity. It's so complex and it's so huge. And 44% of the global economy is actually reliant on nature-related services. So this is huge. But what's really scary about it is the complexity. So we've got a new framework coming, TNFD, due to be ready in September. But say, for example, the difference between biodiversity and climate. TCFD, which is a recommended framework for reporting on climate, has 4 data points. TNFD has 52. So just get the differences, it's huge. And I think one of the challenges around biodiversity is education. What does it mean to us? So at Caceis, we were very, very honoured to partner with the London Zoo. And we've written the biodiversity guide, which was published a couple of weeks ago. It was targeted at asset owners, but it's there for everybody to read. And it's a very simple step-by-step guide on biodiversity, really coming back to the basics. So what are the challenges? What are the things I have to think about as a trustee? What is biodiversity? Breaking that down into the different elements. So that's something we've done at Caceis to try and help our clients in this huge journey ahead of them in respect to biodiversity.
Obviously, all of what we've talked about relies heavily upon data and getting the right data. What do you think we're seeing in those terms at the moment, and where are we at with reliability of that data? You said, you can have so many different data sets, but how can the industry to support better supply of that?
I think it's doing all that it can, actually. And I think there's such huge leaps forward in respect of the data quality. I'm quite comfortable personally where we're going with it. And like I said, I pointed out, there's still lots and lots of challenges on inconsistencies, and the cost, I think, is a big thing. But I think the other area I think that we can all do is actually we need to be creative in our thinking. And as a financial industry, I think we have the power to do that. So I alluded to the pension fund industry, 2.4 trillion assets, just in UK pensions, that's it. We have a lot of power. So what I've done, and it's something I'm very passionate about, but it's linked, is I've created a group called Everyone Matters. And it's focused purely on cognitive diversity, because I think as an industry, we need to appreciate cognitive diversity in its whole, and that creative thinking to try and resolve some of these problems that we have ahead of us. And some of those are very huge. So I think that this group that we've formed is going to be running regular forums, and it will be focused, like I say, on understanding what does cognitive diversity mean to me and how can I use it in my business. So we'll be providing insights on that, and also an opportunity for people to meet very senior decision makers in the industry so that they can actually see the potential opportunities for them. But I think the empowerment of people is so important to me. At Caceis, I've built a team based on diversity of personality, and I might think this, I'm biased maybe, that I have a very high performing team in the UK at Caceis. So I think this is our opportunity as an industry, with the data, with our decision making, but actually thinking about how we can be creative to actually make a real difference. And I think we're in a unique position to do that.
Really embrace those diverse teams, because that's how you're going to get the ideas.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Pat, always great to talk to you. Thanks so much for sharing everything you're doing.
Thank you.